Hello, welcome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this session about self-monitoring of blood glucose. This is part of a series of interactive educational sessions presented by Qatar Diabetes Association that aims at raising awareness about diabetes and helping those living with diabetes to better manage and control their blood glucose. My name is Ahmed Al Asyuti. I am a health educator from Qatar Diabetes Association. I will be hosting this uh, session today. This session will take approximately 45 minutes. During the session, I'm going to ask some questions for discussion. You will see the question on your screen, either laptop or mobile phone with multiple choice. Then you get to choose the right answer, and then we will discuss together the answers. If you have any question during this session, kindly write it down on the chat screen that you have, and then I will respond to them by the end of the session. So what are we going to talk about today? First, we will know what is diabetes self-management and how important is the self-management of diabetes. And then we will know the different types of tools or tests used to check the glycemic control and the difference between them. And then we will know how we would make use of those results that we get from the tests and how it helps us to take the right decision. And finally, I'm going to show you some of the uses that the new technologies is uh, bringing to us to help people living with diabetes manage their diabetes easily. Let's first define a term, a very important term, which is the self-monitoring of blood glucose, or known shortly as SMBG. This is the process of checking the blood glucose, monitoring, documenting, and organizing all those results by the person living with diabetes. Or sometimes the person living with diabetes might need some help from a caregiver or a guardian or someone else, just in case he or she cannot perform the test. But eventually, the process of monitoring those and recording those tests, those results, is the self-monitoring. And not just recording them, but making use of the information given by those results that would help a person with diabetes so they can manage their diabetes. This term, the self-monitoring of blood glucose, is part of a broader term known as the diabetes management. And the diabetes management is all the activities and all the tasks that a person with diabetes do to manage their diabetes. This includes healthy eating, being active, self-monitoring of blood glucose, which is our session today, taking the medication, solving problems that might arise, and coping and reducing the risks. So all these activities, the diet, the exercise, taking your medications, and self-monitoring, all this is called the diabetes management. Today, we are going to talk about a very important part, which is the self-monitoring of blood glucose. We have many monitoring methods for the glycemia or the blood glucose level. So today we are going to discuss the most important that every person living with diabetes needs to know. First of all is the HbA1c test, and then we have the self-monitoring devices or the traditional devices that we all have. The home at home, we use it for regular checking, for daily check, and this includes it could check for us the fasting blood glucose, the postprandial or after meal blood glucose, and even the random blood glucose. And then we have the flash glucose monitoring devices, and we have the continuous glucose monitoring devices. We're going to talk in detail about each one of those. So let's start with the HbA1c test. The HbA1c test, or some people call it only the A1c, is the measurement, is the mean of the plasma glucose over the past 3 months. So it gives us a general picture about the situation, about our blood glucose in the past 3 months. And usually it's used for diagnosis, for diagnosing a person, whether he's having diabetes or not. And it's usually on regular basis for follow-up, usually to know how a person is doing. Is he improving? Is the diet plan or the medications he's taking, is it giving a good effect, or should we do another intervention? For some people, they might just mix up between the HbA1c and the normal or regular home tests. So I'll just give you some advice on how to distinguish or how to differentiate between the HbA1c test and any other blood glucose tests. First of all, the HbA1c usually is done in hospital or health center. So usually when your doctor calls you up and then you go to the health center or the hospital, and then the doctor draws some blood for some investigations, usually part of those investigations there is an HbA1c test done. Okay, it's not usually done at home, although some new manufacturers are doing some HbA1c machines or that can test, you can test at home, but till now it's internationally it's used. The HbA1c is usually uh, taken at hospital or the health center. The result is usually is in percentage. So it's, you get the results and it's 5%, 10%, some people 14%. So it's usually a percentage. And it's done every 3 months. This is very important. So every 3 months, you need to check if if you're living with diabetes. Every 3 months, make sure that you get the HbA1c test done. Even if you don't get a call from your doctor, make sure that you ask for the HbA1c. And finally, it is not necessary to be fasting for the HbA1c. You can do it fasting, but if you're not fasting, it's not a problem. You can do it. The result of the HbA1c is reliable. It's used everywhere everywhere you go. And although sometimes it might get the result might get affected if you have some of the blood problems like problems with hemoglobin, deficiency of vitamin B12, of iron, but still it's reliable, and it's done on regular basis. So my advice for everyone living with diabetes, you need to know your HbA1c and always remember the date. When was the last time that you had your HbA1c checked? Because if you go, wherever you go, if you want to speak to any health professional or anyone, you want to discuss your case before anything, then this doctor is going to ask you, the first question is he's going to ask you is, when did you last do uh, HbA1c test and how much was it? So you need to keep record of your HbA1c. This table shows the screening when you are using the HbA1c for screening. Then this is the results. The normal results for a person with normal blood glucose would be less than 5.7%. If it's between 5.8% and 6.4%, then this is what we call the pre-diabetes phase, which is not diabetes, but the blood glucose is higher than the normal range. And this is where the diet plan goes in, and the exercise. The person is motivated to do more activity, but usually in this phase, the person is not given any medications. And this is a transitional phase where if you commit yourself to the diet and the exercise and the healthy lifestyle, then you might go back to the normal stage. And if you neglect it and you gain more weight, then you develop into the diabetes stage, which is A1C 6.5% or more. Okay, if a person is more than 6.5 and he's diagnosed with diabetes, and then is going every 3 months for a follow-up. So what is the target A1C for people living with diabetes? And this is going to be our first question. You will see now the question on your screens, and let's see your answers. You can vote now. What is the target HbA1c level for people with diabetes? Is it 7%, 9%, 12%, or 14%? Diabetes is required to maintain an HbA1c level of 7% or less. This is how we would say that he's well controlling his or her blood glucose, and this is how we can prevent further complications that might arise due to high blood glucose. So the target HbA1c is 7%. So every 3 months, when you go and you check the HbA1c, it needs to be 7 or less. This is how you know that you're doing good with your control. Now, let's take a look at these two graphs. We have one on the left. This is patient A, and the one on the right is patient B. Both patient A and patient B, they both have an A1C of 7%, which is good for us. If we take a look at the row below, it shows the number of days from day 1, 918, till day 90, which is 3-month period. And then the column that we see shows the level of blood glucose. If we take a look at patient A, his sugar or her sugar is going up and down, but the variation is not so big between the ups and downs. While if we take a look at the patient B, we see high spikes of hyperglycemia and very low hypoglycemia. And there is a variation and disturbance in the pattern. While both of them, they have a 7% A1C, but on daily basis, patient A is more stable than patient B. And this is one of the drawbacks of the HbA1c test, that it shows you the whole picture, but it does not show you the details, the day-to-day level of glucose of a certain person. And this is where the importance of the self-monitoring of blood glucose shows. The self-monitoring of blood glucose, or let's say the traditional self-monitoring devices that we have in our house, each and everyone with diabetes should be having a glucometer at home. This measures the level of glucose from the capillary blood sample, and it's easy to use. We can take it with us wherever we go. We can check anytime, and it's very, very important because it gives the person the information that they need to make the right decisions about the next step, what to do next. Okay, about should I eat the next meal? Do I need to lower the carbs in the next meal? And do I need to take sugar? Is my sugar too low? Do I need to take some sugar? Is it too high? Do I need to do exercise? All those decisions, they depend on the results that you see from your glucometer. Not only that, but it also provides a feedback on the effect of exercise. If I'm about to exercise and I don't know walking for 30 minutes or going to the gym for 1 hour, how much does it usually lower my blood glucose? Then I get to check before the exercise and after the exercise, and I see the difference, and I can get the picture about how much exercise lowers my blood glucose. The diet, for example, many people would ask, what if I eat a fruit salad, or what if I eat pasta? Is it going to raise my blood glucose or no? If you want to make sure, then check your blood sugar first, blood glucose, and then take the meal, and after 2 hours check again and see how much this meal raises your blood glucose. It also shows us if the medication that we're taking is effective or not. Okay, so it's very important for us to have a glucometer. You know, glucometers, they're everywhere, they're available in the markets or the pharmacies. Different, many manufacturers are there, many companies are producing glucometers, and all of them, they do the same basic function required, which is uh, determining the level of the blood glucose. They just differ from company to other company because of those manufacturers are competing by adding special features. For example, some machines, they just give you the result. Others, they give you the result and they give you an indicator if your sugar is normal, within range, is it high, is it low. Some other manufacturers, they have glucometers with Bluetooth that you can connect with your mobile phone, and then you get all the results sent and organized in an application that you can review later, or you could show it to your doctor. So it's a different features, but all of them, all of them, they do the same job. That we need is just knowing how much is the blood glucose. Here I'm going to talk just another point that most of the people might get. They mix them up, or it confuses a lot of people. That is the measuring units used in the glucometers. Okay, glucometers, they come into two measuring units. One is the milligram per deciliter, that is the mg/dl, or in millimoles per liter, that is mmol/L. Those two different units, just because of different countries, they use different units. It's just like you driving, for example, here in Qatar or in the Middle East, you would see the speed limit is 80, which is 80 kilometers per hour. And this differs from driving in America, for example. It's, you see the sign 50, and this means it's the speed limit is 50 miles per hour. So it's the same speed, but the units are different. This exactly applies to the glucometers around the world. So you would see some countries, they use the millimole per liter, and some other countries, they use the milligrams per deciliters. And in some countries, like here in Qatar, for example, we have the two units. If you go to the health center, you might most probably get the results in millimole per liter. And for example, in Qatar Diabetes Association, all the glucometers we provide, the unit is milligrams per deciliter. I'm going to give you just a small tip on, if you, for example, if you are used to the millimole per liter, and then you find you went to the doctor and the doctor gave you your result in milligrams per deciliter, there is a very easy way that you can convert those units. Okay. If you have, if you want to convert from milligrams per deciliter to millimoles per liter, then just divide by 18, and vice versa. If you want to convert from millimoles per liter to milligrams per deciliter, multiply by 18. For example, if you have a 10 millimole per liter, your machine shows 10 millimole per liter, then you want to convert it to milligrams per deciliter, just multiply by 18, and it's 180 milligrams per deciliter. Those measuring units is just important if you are about to buy to get a glucometer, or if you have a glucometer, make sure that you know the measuring units that you are using, and you also need to know all the target values within the same measuring unit your machine is using. If you are using a machine in millimoles per liter, make sure all your targets that you know and you say by heart are in millimoles per liter. I'm going to ask you another question just to make sure that we all now know how to exchange between the millimoles per liters and milligrams per deciliter. Here is a quick question. If a glucometer is showing 5 millimoles per liter, how much would it show in milligrams per deciliter? Is it going to show 80, 90, 100, or 120? Okay, let's see. Okay, 60% of the people said that it's going to show 80 milligrams per deciliter, and 40 said that it will show 90 milligrams per deciliter. If you want to know the answer, then if we want to change from millimoles to milligrams, that's just multiplied by 18. And if you multiply 5 times 18, then it's 90 milligrams per deciliter. So the answer B is the right answer. It's 90 milligram per deciliter is equivalent to 5 millimoles per liter. Okay. What should I know about self-monitoring? What is the importance of self-monitoring? Okay, as a person living with diabetes, you need to know how to test and when to test. That's a question most of the people ask. How many times should I test per day? And it's a question that we're going to answer in the next slide. So how do I check? You need to know if you get a machine, you get a glucometer, you need to, there must be a health educator or someone to show you how to properly check your blood glucose. Usually, it comes with the machine comes with a booklet, and there are videos available on YouTube that you can see, know the model of your glucometer, and then go check the videos on YouTube. And we also have in our website qda.org.qa, we have a section for showing people videos showing how you can use your machine to properly check your blood glucose. And anytime you can get to contact us, I'm going to provide you with our phone numbers that you can call us anytime if you have a new machine and then you need help with the setting and operating and how to perform the blood check, then we can help you with it step by step. Okay, and then you need to know how to record the results in an organized way. You need to have a notepad, an application on your mobile phone, or keeping track, writing down all the results in a proper way that you can get back to it later on, or you can show it to the health professional. If you have an appointment, you can show it to him or her and then discuss the results together. So you need a documented results sheet. Okay, how am I going to to make use of those results? Okay, I'm going to discuss this in details in the next slide, and how to respond to results that are higher or lower than the target. Okay, here we have the sheet. Okay, this is the self-monitoring blood glucose sheet that we have in QDA. And this is, we give it to everyone who wants to control his or her blood glucose, and then we ask them to fill this table. As you can see, it contains you write down the date first, and then you check once before breakfast. Let's see how many tests that we have. We have one before breakfast, 2 hours after breakfast, that's two. Before lunch, 3. 2 hours after lunch, 4. Before dinner, 5. And 2 hours after dinner, those are 6 times check. In addition to that, if you feel any abnormality, if you feel any signs of hyper or hypoglycemia or anything abnormal, you need to check. Okay, so it's a minimum of 6 plus any other occasions. Okay, this, yeah, for some people they would say this is too much checking. Yes, but the golden rule is the more you test, then the more you get to know about the level of glucose and about your body and how your body interacts with the different foods and activities. So this 6 times, we usually recommend that people newly diagnosed with diabetes or people who have their blood glucose out of range, they don't know where to start, to fill all this table, okay? And it's preferable to fill also the meal details, what you eat, your diet here on those sections is preferable because we want to know what you eat, okay, your eating habits. And because after you fill all this table, you are going to have a discussion with the dietitian, and then she's going to make some modifications. This is better than just ruling out all your diet plan and then giving you new diet plan that you might not like or you might not uh, continue. Okay, so she's going to discuss with you your meal, your eating habits, and then with some modifications, you can reach an area where it's comfortable for you and for us. Okay, so here, as I mentioned before, we write down the date. Let's have a simple scenario about someone, okay, and this person is having a blood glucose that is out of range and he wants to control his or her blood glucose. So this person woke up on day 1 and then checked his or her blood glucose. And how much do you think, how much should the blood glucose level be before breakfast? This is what we call the fasting blood glucose. So what is the recommended fasting blood glucose test level for a person living with diabetes? Should it be less than 130 milligrams per deciliter or less than 150 milligrams per deciliter or less than 180 or less than 250? And the fasting blood glucose test is a test done after 8 to 10 hours of fasting. The person should not be eating anything or drinking anything except water. Okay, and it's always recommended to be done once you wake up. Okay, let me share with you the results. 86% say that it should be less than 130 milligrams per deciliter, which is equivalent to 7.2 millimoles per liter, and that is the right answer. The fasting blood glucose test should not exceed 130 milligrams per deciliter. So this person woke up, and then after checking the blood glucose before breakfast, or the fasting blood glucose, the result was 170, 170 milligrams per deciliter, or 9.4 millimoles. And that is a high fasting blood glucose level. If you want to control your blood glucose, then you need to start with adjusting the fasting blood glucose level before going to the rest of the postprandial levels. Okay, first we need to adjust this high number, and then we can continue to the rest of the day. Because if you wake up with a high blood glucose, then most probably the rest of the day you would have high readings. Okay, so unless you break that high blood glucose readings with either exercise, or for people taking insulin by taking a corrective dose, or by taking your medication, or lowering the amount of carbohydrates in a meal, then expect that it's going to be high all day. Okay, so for this person, okay, the causes of why a fasting blood glucose is high, it could be because this person had a large dinner meal the previous day, or he took his dinner too late, or for people who are taking insulin, like the long-acting insulin at night, maybe he forgot to take his or her insulin, or maybe the insulin that they are taking needs some adjustment. So we have different reasons why the morning before breakfast or the fasting reading is high. So we need to work on that first. So we gave this person an advice on, okay, you can take your dinner earlier. Okay, don't take it late, and make it a light dinner. Okay, and let's see. So when he went on day one, at dinner, he had a very light dinner, and then he checked before going to bed, and it was 135, which is good. Okay, so the next day, which is day two, he woke up with 120, which is excellent. Okay, as a fasting blood glucose, he had his breakfast or her breakfast that had 1 egg and Greek salad and 1 piece of bread, a cup of milk, and an apple, and took his or her medication if he's taking medications. And then 2 hours after the breakfast, it was 135. That's good. And then a check before lunch, it was 140. That is also good, within range. Okay, because usually there is, after eating or after having a meal, after 2 hours, you need to check. Okay, so how much should it be after a meal? What is the recommended level of glucose 2 hours after meal, or any time during the day? So any time during the day, I mean by any time during the day is the random blood glucose checking for people living with diabetes. So how much should it be? Anytime during the day or 2 hours after meal? The higher limit for people living with diabetes, how much is it? Let's see the results here. We have less than 100, only 11%, and 89% say that it's less than 180 milligrams per deciliter. That's the right answer because any random blood glucose check or postprandial, that we call after meal, 2 hours after meal, then it should not exceed 180 milligrams per deciliter or 10 millimoles per liter. So as we can see here, those readings are okay. 135, 140, they're okay. And then he had lunch, contained fish, potatoes, pasta, and 2 pieces of bread. And then after 2 hours from lunch, the sugar was 250. So this is high. This is higher than 180. And this means that we could say that most probably, if not definitely, it's because of the um, high carbohydrates within this meal, within lunch. So we ask this person to make some modifications with lunch. Okay, you need, for example, to how much pasta you had. He said a plate full of pasta. That's too much. We need no. Okay, just try to omit the pasta or take just a small portion of pasta. Instead of 2 pieces of bread, take 1 piece, and let's see the next day what happens. Okay, so this person went on, took the advice, and after a meal, within 250, he did some exercise just to bring that down. Okay, after exercising for an hour, he found it's 190. Okay, now it's dinner time. What shall we do? Okay, you can have a very light or low carb dinner. Okay, or if you can skip it, then it's okay. So this is the next decision this person is going to take. I'll have a light dinner or skip dinner. It's whichever he can do or he feels like doing. And then he checked before going to bed, and it was 150, which is relatively okay. Good, that's good. Before bed. The next day, this person woke up with a fasting blood glucose level of 126, which is good. Had breakfast, and had his medications, if he or she is taking medications or insulin. 2 hours after the breakfast, it was 150. Checked before lunch, it was 140. He took the lunch with omitting the pasta and taking only 1 piece of bread. And after lunch, after 2 hours from lunch, it was 160, which is good. Okay, he did some light exercise and it became to 120. So this day, today, you can have dinner, normal dinner, okay, not too much, not too small, and early dinner, and then it was 145. And this example of how it goes, the process of adjusting diet and medications and giving some tips, and then a person can get a full control about the um, his or her blood glucose. But you see, the most important thing in all this table is the checking, the testing. The more you test, then the more you know how your body interacts with different activities or diets. Okay, just a quick reminder for people how to deal with hypoglycemia. Okay, if you feel abnormal or anything abnormal during the day, then you need to check your blood glucose. Okay, so if you have a headache or or your hands are shaky or you are sweating or you feel dizzy, okay, or hungry, those are the signs that predict you have hypoglycemia or you're going to develop hypoglycemia soon. So immediately you need to check your blood glucose. How much would it be? Would it confirm to you that you have hypoglycemia? If you get a reading that is 70 or around 70 milligrams per deciliter or 4 millimoles or around 4 millimoles per liter, this indicates that you have hypoglycemia and you need to do something about it immediately. Okay, so how are we going to deal with hypoglycemia? You need to have a fast absorbed carbohydrates. I'm going to give you 4 choices that you can choose from. First, a small cup of juice, or a spoonful of honey, or candies. If you have candies, you can take 2 or 3 candies, and dates, you can take 3 days. That is equivalent to 15 milligrams per deciliter. That's what you need. You need to take 15 milligrams of fast acting carbohydrates and then wait for 15 minutes. Okay, and then check again. Make sure that your blood glucose has reached 100 or 5.5 millimoles, 100 milligrams per deciliter or higher. And this is how you know that you have managed your hypoglycemia episode. Okay. Well, if I checked again after 15 minutes and it's still 75, for example, then you need to again go back and take one of those choices, okay, and wait for 15 minutes before rechecking again and making sure that you are above 100. This is how we treat hypoglycemia. Check blood glucose, 15 grams of fast-acting carbohydrates, 15 minutes waiting, check. Okay. Okay. Now about hyperglycemia. How do we know or confirm that we have hypoglycemia? Usually, hypoglycemia comes with the feeling of nausea, some altered vision. Sometimes some people see like a foggy vision, and sometimes vomiting, feeling fatigue or lazy. Those are all signs of hyperglycemia. Okay, any reading beyond 180 milligrams per deciliter or 10 millimoles per deciliter is higher than the target range, and then at any point a person might start to develop the signs of hypoglycemia, although some people, they develop the signs when they have very high readings, more than 300 or 350. But usually if you feel anything abnormal with your body, you get to check. Okay, as I told you, you might feel nauseatic, you have some abnormal vision, thirsty, or fatigue. Check your blood glucose. If it's higher than 180 or if it's high in general, you need to drink more water, do some exercise. Okay, for people with type 1 diabetes or people taking insulin, they might need to take a correction dose. And here we need to just highlight that people with type 1 diabetes are not advised to do exercise if they have a high blood glucose, because this might make things go worse. Okay, and also for people with type 1 diabetes, if it's higher than 250 milligrams per deciliter or higher than 13.9 millimoles per liter, they need to do a ketone test, because they will more likely to develop ketoacidosis, which is a very serious medical condition, and it needs special care. So whenever you have a sugar more than 250 milligrams per deciliter, check the ketones. Luckily now the glucometers, they have some manufacturers, they do have glucometers that can check blood glucose and also the ketones, just using special strips, so you can get that in hand. This is especially for type 1 diabetes. Usually the ketone level should be less than 0.6 millimole per liter. If it's from 1.5, from 0.6 to 1.5 millimoles per liter, you need to call your doctor or the health care professional and get the guide, and him or her, let him show you what to do in this case. If it's more than 1.5, this is an emergency case and you need to go to the hospital, because usually if you develop the ketoacidosis, that's a case that needs hospitalization and some treatment protocols, special treatment protocols. Okay, so nowadays the technology is advancing, um, quickly, and it's delivering some new ways of blood glucose monitoring devices that helps us to record and document and track our blood glucose. One of those methods is what we call the flash glucose monitoring. Those devices, they have two separate devices. One is the sensor that gets attached to the body, and it has a small, like, capillary inserted underneath the skin. And this sensor comes with a reader, a small machine, as you can see here in the picture. The reader, when you scan it or when you move it close to the sensor, then it gives you the result. And usually the sensor reads from the interstitial fluid or the fluid between the cells, and it can read the level of glucose accurately, and you can rely on that reading. So it's whenever you scan the sensor, you get the result, no matter how many times that you get those scanned. And also with the number, your blood glucose level, it gives you an arrow that shows the pattern. If your glucose is going to raise up quickly during the next hour or the next 2 hours, is it going to drop down? Is it steady? And that's another nice feature from the company, from the product, because it can tell you or predict to you what to do next. The other type of devices is called the continuous glucose monitoring devices, and it also has the sensor that is inserted beneath the skin. The only difference is that the flash glucose monitoring only gives you the reading when you scan your device above or close to the sensor, while the continuous glucose monitoring automatically keeps a record, continuous 24 hours of the records about your blood glucose pattern, and then it sends via a transmitter to your mobile application, or there is a device that comes with the sensor. It keeps on sending um, the results 24/7. For people using the insulin pump, they do have, with the pump, it comes with a sensor, and usually the pump also keeps on measuring the blood glucose in a continuous manner. So the benefit of this new technology is that it gives you a full report about the glucose pattern. Okay, how many times you have checked, what was the mean glucose level, and in percentage, it gives you a graphs in percentage, how much you were at range, how much percentage you were higher than range, and how much lows. And also a nice feature is that it gives you an estimation of your A1C level. So it combines the HbA1c and the daily self-monitoring results in one whole detailed um, report. This page that you see is only the first page of a 10 or 15 page report that gives you everything you need to know for you, and even for the doctor that is following up with you, or the healthcare. He gets a full detailed information about your blood glucose patterns and can make wise decisions about either taking medications or modifying your medications or stopping medications, or um, uh, giving you a diet plan for management. This is everything for today, and thank you for being with us. If you have any question regarding this session, it's I'm free. You are welcome. And this is our helpline, as you can see.